Is Israel's rebirth really a modern day miracle or something entirely different altogether? This is so important. It's worth looking into, everyone, so that we don't get deceived in these last days. And that's why we're putting this series together, a new series called Unveiling Israel Today. I'm Mark Davidson and I'm excited to take you on this journey of discovery. Whether you're completely new to global politics or just trying to make sense of what you see in the news about Israel and the Middle East, this series is designed for you. In the next few minutes, we're going to explore something being heralded as truly remarkable. That's what they're saying. The rebirth of Israel. It's amazing as a nation. And we'll explore why many believe that this fulfills ancient scriptural prophecies. But don't worry, we're going to keep things really simple. We're going to use everyday language and focus on the big picture rather than getting lost in all the complicated details. But before we dive in, let me ask you a question. Have you ever wondered why tiny little Israel, a country smaller than most US states, constantly makes global headlines? Or why so many religious folk often talk about Israel when discussing scriptural prophecy? What's the deal with Israel? Well, by the end of this episode, you'll understand why Israel's very existence is considered by many to be one of the greatest miracles of modern times. But is it really? Is it really? Or is there something more insidious at play underneath? Firstly, let's discuss ancient Israel and the diaspora. Diaspora just means scattered Jews not living in the land of Israel. So to understand why Israel's modern rebirth is so significant, we need to briefly look at its ancient history. About 3,000 years ago, King David established the 12 tribes of Israel into a united kingdom, and they all lived in the land that was then called Canaan, with Jerusalem as its capital. After David's son Solomon died, the kingdom split into two and was conquered many times by Assyrians, Babylonians, Greeks, Romans, until eventually in 70 CE the Romans destroyed Jerusalem completely and its temple. So this is what continued what's called the diaspora, that scattering of the Jewish people throughout the world. That's what happened big time 2,000 years ago. And for nearly 2,000 years, the Jews have appeared to be living as minorities in other nations, often facing great persecution, but always maintaining their unique identity and connection to their ancestral homeland. Oh yes, they've been quite brazen about who they are, haven't they? Always elevating themselves based on their interpretations of scriptural prophecies regarding them. Of course, it's all what they say, isn't it? Anyway, throughout this time, the last 2,000 years, the Jewish people continued to pray facing Jerusalem. And their Passover celebrations would even end with the phrase, "next year in Jerusalem." But despite having no homeland, they maintained their language, their traditions, and identity, which is something unprecedented in world history. In fact, most of them quote this scripture text written thousands of years ago from Deuteronomy 30 regarding their restoration. It says in verse 3, "Then Yahuwah." Now, Yahuwah is just the Creator's name, his Hebrew name. It's not Lord or God. That could mean anyone. It's Yahuwah. So the scripture says, "Yahuwah, your Elohim, will restore your fortunes and have compassion on you and gather you again from all the nations where he scattered you. Even if you have been banished to the most distant land under the heavens, from there I will gather you and bring you back." That's what Deuteronomy says. Many believe this text, and others like it, speak of a future regathering of the Jewish people with their other Israelite tribes to their homeland. For centuries this seemed just straight up impossible. But in the 20th century, something very strange began to happen. And this brings us to the Holocaust and its impact. The darkest chapter in modern Jewish history came during World War II with the Holocaust. Between 1939 and 1945, Hitler's Nazi Germany systematically killed 6 million Jewish people, about 2/3 of Europe's Jewish population. This unimaginable tragedy seemed to highlight the vulnerability of Jewish communities without a homeland of their own. The Holocaust created a moral imperative for many of the world's leaders. For if the Jewish people had their own state, they could defend themselves and provide refuge for survivors. But the path to statehood wasn't that simple. Following World War II, many Holocaust survivors attempted to immigrate to what was then British-controlled Palestine. The British, trying to balance Arab and Jewish interests, often turned these ships away. This period of history showed the desperate need for a Jewish homeland, but few believed it would ever actually come about. The obstacles just seemed too insurmountable. But then 1948 happened. In November 1947, something apparently remarkable happened at the newly formed United Nations. The UN voted to partition the British Mandate of Palestine into 2 states, one Jewish and one Arab. The Jewish leadership heralded this plan, while the Arab leaders rejected it, of course. So as the British prepared to withdraw from Palestine in May 1948, all the Jewish leaders gathered in Tel Aviv to make a momentous announcement. On May 14, 1948, David Ben-Gurion, who would become Israel's first Prime Minister, he declared the establishment of the State of Israel. And within minutes, US President Harry Truman officially recognized the new nation of Israel. But the huge celebration was very short-lived. For the very next day, 5 Arab armies, now they're from Palestine, remember? We've got Israel and Palestine. Well, these 5 armies from Palestine invaded their new neighbours, the newborn state of Israel, beginning what Israelis call the War of Independence. And yet against overwhelming odds, Israel survived. But for many believers, this wasn't just a geopolitical event. It was the fulfillment of scriptural prophecy. I mean, after nearly 2,000 years without a homeland, the Jewish people once again had a sovereign state in their ancestral land. And they lifted up texts like Isaiah 66:8, which says, "Who has ever heard of such things? Who has ever seen things like this? Can a country be born in a day, or a nation be brought forth in a moment? Yet no sooner is Zion in labour than she gives birth to her children." I mean, this verse, written thousands of years earlier, seemed to describe exactly what happened in 1948, a nation born in a day. But is it true that real legitimate prophecy was being fulfilled here? Or was this another grand shift in a darker agenda being unfolded? Was it really fulfillment of prophecy, what happened in 1948? Or something deeper and darker playing out on the global stage? And speaking about prophecy, why do so many religious people see Israel's rebirth as prophetically significant, like something monumental is being fulfilled here? Well, throughout the scripture, particularly in books like Isaiah and Jeremiah and Ezekiel, there are numerous prophecies about Israel returning to their homeland in the last days. But for centuries, these just all seemed impossible to fulfill, unless they were actually fulfilled some other way, somehow, through someone else. Like, who would have the power to transform the content of a scriptural prophecy and fulfill it in himself and his chosen people? Who could do that? Think about that. Not everything in scripture is literal, you know. Not everything plays out physically. It's a spiritual book. Think about this. Many people quote Ezekiel 37:21, which says, "This is what the sovereign Yahuwah says, I will take the Israelites out of the nations where they have gone. I will gather them from around. I will gather them from all around and bring them back into their own land. I will make them one nation in the land, on the mountains of Israel." Is that literal though? Is that to be fulfilled through the current state of Israel today? Or maybe there's some other way or some other people that might qualify as a fulfillment, looking at it supernaturally maybe. And what about this text in Jeremiah 16 where it says in verse 14, "However, the days are coming, declares Yahuwah, when it will no longer be said, as surely as Elohim lives." Now, Elohim has nothing to do with the Muslim Allah. It's just the original Hebrew word for the one true living mighty creator. You might know him as God, many call him God, but the word God just refers to any generic heathen deity of pagan myth. So Elohim is much more accurate rendering of that word. Anyway, the text says, "However, the days are coming, declares Yahuwah, when it will no longer be said, as surely as Elohim lives, who brought the Israelites up out of Egypt. But it will be said, as surely as Elohim lives, who brought the Israelites up out of the land of the north, and out of all the countries where he had banished them. For I will restore them to the land I gave their ancestors." But again, do these prophecies really speak of a specific, literal regathering from all countries? Or just from one exile, maybe like Babylon in ancient times? Is there a spiritual, supernatural component to be understood here? Some other way that they might be fulfilled? Well, many scholars believe that this describes the modern return of the Jewish people from over 100 nations worldwide, and who can argue with scholars? What makes this especially remarkable, though, is that no other ancient people have ever returned to re-establish their nation after such a long absence. The Babylonians, the Assyrians, the Philistines, and other ancient peoples mentioned in the scripture, they've all disappeared. All gone. Dissipated into the annals of history. Only the Jewish people have maintained their identity, haven't they? Their relentless pride as the status of Scripture's chosen people and the voice of God on the earth, and have now returned to re-establish their ancient homeland again. For many believers in Scripture, this isn't just a coincidence. It's divine fulfillment of heavenly promises. And of course, it sets the stage for other end-time prophecies that, of course, are usually cherry-picked and misquoted. But we'll explore them throughout this series as well. So today, in conclusion, Israel's rebirth in 1948 was truly unique. We've got to give him that. It was truly unique from any perspective, really, historically, politically, and for many even spiritually. A people scattered for nearly 2 millennia returned to re-establish their ancient homeland against overwhelming odds. But before you crack open the champagne, before you pull your tambourines out and sing the song of Zion's restoration, think about this. The Jews are just one tribe of Israel, Judah. And there's a mix of Benjamin in there too, so let's say they're 2 tribes. The Jews are just two tribes. There were 12 tribes that conquered Canaan land with Joshua, who rallied unified under King David and King Solomon. Where are the other 10 northern tribes? Where are they? Those that went into the Assyrian captivity over 2730 years ago. Where are they gone? Those that got assimilated into the rest of the world. Why don't the Jews talk about them very much? How can these prophecies be fulfilled properly and legitimately through a physical lineage and tribal bloodlines if the majority of the nation has been interbred with every other nation of the world? 10 tribes are gone. There's only 2 that we're talking about, the Jews. And then, of course, don't forget all the records of ancestry were destroyed during the siege of Jerusalem in 70 AD. Do you smell something fishy going on here? Are they really the chosen people that Scripture speak of? Interesting. Think about these things. I hope you stay with us through this series, because we're going to dive into the ongoing Middle Eastern crisis and conflicts. We're going to dive into the significance of Jerusalem. Also, how current events are being forced into scriptural prophecies, and what Scripture truly says about Israel's role in these last days. So, whether you're coming at this from a scriptural perspective, or you're just simply interested in understanding world events, Israel's story is unlike any other in human history. In fact, in Amos chapter 9, Elohim says, "I will bring my people Israel back from exile. They will rebuild the ruined cities and live in them. I will plant Israel in their own land, never again to be uprooted from the land I have given them, says Yahuwah, your Elohim." So now, before we end, let me ask you, why do you think Israel continues to be at the center of the world's attention, despite its very small borders? And also, was her rebirth and return to the land in 1948 really a divine prophecy, or something of their own scheming? Is Israel today the same chosen people that Yahuwah Elohim, our Creator in Scripture, banished, cursed, punished, exiled, and gave a certificate of divorce to? And if she is, where does she get off? Where do her chosen status and land rights really come from? All these wars are based on her chosen status and her divine land rights. But is she really that person? Is she really that entity, that promised fulfillment? Is it really about her, the current state of Israel today? So where do her chosen land rights and status, where does it really come from? Are they still relevant? Or are these Jews trying to push a square peg into a round hole, squeezing and manipulating ancient prophecies into fulfillment, all the while sweeping her true global plan for united worship right under the rug, as she masquerades as a messenger of light in this world? Think about these things, everybody. Our Messiah Yahusha told us not to be deceived or to fall asleep. That's right, his true name is Yahusha, not Jesus. Jesus is a made-up name. The letter J is only 500 years old. There was never a man walking the earth named Jesus. There's no deliverance or salvation in him. Don't be fooled. Our Messiah Yahusha told us not to be deceived, not to fall asleep, for many will come in his name pretending to be him, in order to lead many astray. So think about these things very carefully. Don't be deceived. Don't just believe the company line or what the news outlets are propagating. Think about these things very carefully. And thank you for joining me for our first episode. In our next, we'll break down the basics of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict in terms that you'll understand, so you can make the headlines that you see easy. Until then, I'm Mark Davidson, and I hope you'll join us next time as we continue unveiling Israel today. Remember, stay awake, keep watching, and endure till the end. Thank you.